Parents that wants to sign up their kids on my program, or older rider that wants to sign himself up, they ask me all the time, I'm going to sign up, but before I do, I want you to be honest with me. You've seen me ride. Do you think I have what it takes? Do you think I'm talented enough? Do you think I can make it? Well, there you go. You're going to find that out today. Watch the whole video, and at the end you will know. You will see if you have what it takes. There it is. Today I am making a video about a question that is constantly asked to me, and is simple, is how to become a BMX World Champion. As the trainer of TTP, whoever fill out a request to be trained by me, on the application form there is a question that asks, what are your goals? And I noticed that everybody that write their goals, it's always things like, I want to be gold medalist at the Olympic. I want to become a world champion. I want to become European champion. I want to have a USA #1 title, etc., etc. Like, they all have goals that are so high, which is the pinnacle of the sport of BMX racing, which is amazing, by the way. Love it, love it, love it. But then by default, the question next to that is always, how do I get there? How to become a world champion? It's a question that's very hard to answer, and I'm proud today to say that I'm putting out this video for you, and I will answer this question very well in 4 steps, 4 classes, right? The first class that I'm going to talk about will be having a sense of direction. Very, very important. The second class, I call them the 13 point to master in order to be a champ. All right, I'm going to dive into that. The third point that I'm going to mention, it's called the sand barrel analogy. There's going to be a lot into that one. And then the final point will be what I call the hat pull analogy. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you will know exactly how to become a BMX world champion. And not only that, but you will also know the amount of work that it's going to take for you to get there. And naturally, you will know if this is for you or not. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. So first class, having a sense of direction. Why is it important? Let me tell you. Because most people that are going to attempt to achieve this goal will fail because they don't have the understanding of the amount of work it's going to take to get there, simply get discouraged and quit. So having a sense of direction, knowing what to expect, become crucially important when you're about to take on this kind of load. Some of you may say, well, I don't really bother with that because I just ride my bike on the track and I'm loving it. I'm doing it for fun. And let's just see what happens. And if I ever hit that level, then great. If not, then at least I had a good time. Let me tell you something. If you are thinking that, that is awesome. Mad respect to that. Of course, BMX has to be for fun. But let me put you perhaps a little perspective. There will be no Olympic gold medalist out there in history of any discipline that has always enjoyed every single training session that they had to do. If you put that type of goal into your mind and you're going for it, I promise you, there will be time where you're not going to feel like riding your bike. You will rather have something else to do than showing up on the track at 120 degrees outside in the summer or in the cold or in the rain, etc., etc. I promise you, this will not always going to be fun. But if you always do it when it happens to be fun for you, you will not put on the load of work that you need to have, and you will simply not achieve that level. I mean, all of those sessions that you're going to do, whether you want to do it or not, if you are disciplined enough to do them after session after session, and so on, you will build to maximize your potential. And that's only when you are going to be able to have a shot at those types of goals, right? So again, having a sense of direction, if the goal that you have, it's greater whether or not you want to go ride tonight. That means that you're just going to be motivated to do it anyway. And that's how champion becomes champion. Let me give you this analogy, okay? Let's say that I have something that you want. And I say, it's simple. It's in my backyard. All you have to do is come to my house and come get it. But let's put some challenge to that. You do not have a phone and you don't know where I live. And I said, no problem. All you got to do is follow me. Well, if I live 15, 20 minutes away from where we are, that won't be a problem. You're going to follow me. You're going to get to my backyard, grab your thing, and you're happy you'll have that thing like I promised you, right? But let's say I live 3 hours away from here or 4 hours away from here, and you have no idea what you're getting yourself into. I'll bet you after 45 minutes of driving behind me without being able to call me, you're going to get upset, right? You're going to start leaving the city, hitting those freeway, and you're going to be thinking, what the heck is this guy's taking me to? Like, you know what? I don't have time for this. You're going to be turning your car around and leave. And then at the end of the day, did you really get the things that you wanted from me? No, you didn't, right? Because you did not know what you were getting yourself into. Now let's put another challenge on that. So let's say, hey man, I've got something that you want. It's in my backyard. I live in Quebec, Canada. All you have to do is come get it. You have to drive yourself there, come get it. Okay, well, if I have what you want, if you really want it, then you will approach this challenge at a whole different level. You'll take time off work, most likely, right? You will have your finances together. You'll have a full tank of gas. You will know your itinerary. You will know hotel to stay. You will have all that planned out. You will drive yourself, take a whole week drive out all the way to Quebec, Canada, get what you want and come back. Most likely, are you going to succeed doing that? Absolutely. Why? Because you knew exactly what you were getting yourself into. You knew it would take you 5 days to get there, all right? And then 5 days to come back. You already knew that and you were okay with it because you wanted that thing bad enough. Same thing in BMX. If you want to be a world champ and you have no idea what type of challenges you're going to have along the way, you are most likely going to change your goal along the way and never get it. So that's what I'm saying. In this video, I'm going to tell you exactly how to get there so that you have that direction. All right, the 13 point to master. I have listed 13 points that you're gonna have to master in order to win races, in order to be a champ. 13 point, 13 skills, okay? But before I dive into them, I need you to think of it a certain way. I need you to imagine if we were to have the ability to give you a score on each of these points from 0 to 100. 0, you can't do it at all. 100, best ever. Now, there are no way to give an actual score on some of these points. But for the sake of you understanding where I'm going with this, you need to imagine that we are able to give you an average of how good you are on each of these points. And in order for you to succeed in the sport of BMX at the level that you want, you're gonna have to think that you cannot just master 1 or 2 or 3 of these points, but you have to think of it as an average. The person that is going to win is going to be the person that has the highest average. So moving forward for the rest of this video and for the rest of all your practices that you're gonna continue to do, you have to think about getting your average of these 13 points higher, not just one of them. Let's start with point number 1, bodies. Okay, physical strength. Fair question. How strong are you? How explosive are you? So from 0 to 100, when you go to a race, are you stronger than most of your competitor? That's a fair question. If you are not as strong, you can still win, but you are going to have to compensate with some other point. We are all born with a certain talent or physical ability as far as your strength. Some people are born stronger than others. That's just the way it is. Now, the good news on that is depending on where you and I are on that 0 to 100 scale, we can still train our body to make it stronger and stronger and stronger. So that's the good news. But the day of the race, that's the question we need to know. How strong are you for that day? Number 2, stamina. Very important one. Are you running out of gas when you race? First line, second line, third line, fourth line. If you're in battle at the last rim session, neck and neck with somebody, do you still have enough gas to continue to apply a good technique and go fast all the way to the finish line? Or do you run out of gas? Another idea about your stamina is if you train a lot, lots of session, velocity session on one day, sprint on another day, plyometrics on another day, endurance on one day, technique. I mean, as you train, do you get tired over the load of training or do you get stronger out of it? Someone that does not have a high stamina will tend to be overtrained really fast. Okay, someone that has a stamina to handle the load of training will be able to train and take it. And that's how they're going to get better. So stamina from 0 to 100, how in shape you are. Now, from point number 3 to point number 10, those are bike skills. So let's talk about them a little bit. Your gait skills. How good are you on your gait? You know, you may score a really high point here on physical strength, but if you are not able to have a good technique out of your gait, you will not be able to transfer that strength. So someone that's going to be very strong with a poor gait will not do very well in the sport of BMX racing. Someone that has amazing gait, get great flow, great timing, etc., but lack of strength, most likely they're going to pop out of the gate really fast, but they're going to get beat at the bottom of the hill when everybody accelerates. But if we were to just think about your gait from 0 to 100, how good are your gait? Acceleration, same thing. Are you the rider that's going to tend to go really fast down the hill, or are you just the guy that pop really fast? How fast is your leg speed, your RPM? Are you those kind of rider that can just spin their legs really fast, or are you the guy that need to push harder? So again, how fast can you accelerate your bike? Some people can accelerate faster than others. That is kind of related to strength, but it's also related to your transfer. So from 0 to 100, the best of the world and someone that's never ridden a bike before. Where are you on that day of the race? Number 5, manual skills. How good are you on your back wheel? Are you the type of rider that most likely race everything with pumping or jumping everything? Or are you the rider that's able to just manual everything on the track and gain speed that way? So that's an important one. There are a lot of riders out there that are so agile on their bike as far as maintaining back wheel, jumping, landing manual, maintaining that manual. Their manual skills level is so high that to them to just pre-manual, manual, or double is so easy for them. As most of people may just jump it, that person is going to manual it and put the whole bike ahead of you. All right? So this is a very important point to know. Are you good at manualing a bike or not? If not, what's your score? 0 to 100. Are you better than average? Worse than average against your peer? And understand, you want to be a world champion here. So you need to compare yourself to the best of your class, not so much what the average kids are doing at the local track. If you truly want to be a world champion, you need to compare yourself to them. If you watch their main event, right, every year you can watch that on YouTube. If you watch their main event and see how they are able to manual their bike, how good are you from 0 to 100? Are you better than them? Are you like them? Or are you worse than them? If you're worse than them, you're going to have to put some time into your manualing, because remember, in order to win a race, it's going to be your average. So if you have a bunch of weaknesses out of here, it's going to lower your score. Number 6, jumping skills. How good are you at jumping? Okay, are you the type of person that's going to look at the double for 6 months in order to jump it? Or are you the type of rider that's going to show up on the track, see a double and say, well, that's cool, I'm going to jump it and nail it perfectly? Number 7 and number 8. So number 7, it's turning skills. Number 8 is corner line. I put them separately, those two, because they're important to understand. When we talk about corner, most likely people is going to think about a way to pass somebody, a low high or a high low. Those would be the corner line, you know, the line that you want to choose. What I'm talking about here at point number 7, it's your turning skill. How good are you at turning a bike? In other words, if I make you race against a stopwatch and put a penny on the ground and ask you to sprint, turn around it and come back, how good are you at turning your bike? And that is a very important skill to know. I mean, you may know your lines as far as knowing how to pass somebody, but there are times where, depending on the corner, you're going to have to learn how to pivot your bike. And if you don't have good turning skills, you are simply not going to make the pass. So turning skill, there are riders out there that they're so good at turning that when they turn, it's almost like they're able to pump the corner like you were to pump a roller. It's pretty impressive. So it's important to look at yourself and evaluate. Are you the type of rider that turn well, or are you the one that you see the bike going into the corner at a certain speed and always leave the corner at a slower speed? Or are you a one that's going to be able to maintain the flow, meaning you show up at 40 miles an hour in front of the corner, and at the end of the corner, you're still at 40 miles an hour. So you were able to maintain that speed throughout the entire corner. So that alone, we're not talking about line here, we're talking about just turning your bike. How good are you at turning your bike from 0 to 100, comparing yourself to the best of your class? Very, very fair question. Now, by default, number 8 will be corner line. Now let's talk about the lines. How good are you at seeing line when you're behind the gate and the gate drop, and let's say you're in 5th place, you go to a corner? Are you able to see what to do? High, low, high? Are you staying with them? There are people that are better than other at learning how to take corner. So fair question. Are you the type of rider that get passed more often than you are able to pass someone? So you're gonna have to look at this and give yourself a score. How good are you at finding lines when you race in groups? Number 9, very similar to number 8, pack riding skill. That's an important one. When you ride and you have the whole track to yourself, that's one thing to focus on your technique. But when you're gonna have people left and right close to you, how comfortable are you in a group? There are people that will see 2 things. One, they're gonna see their bar being literally 1 inch from the other person and think to themselves, oh my gosh, I've got plenty of room, I'm going in. And there are other riders that the person's gonna be 3 feet away from them, and they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, he's in my way, and will surrender because they felt trapped. Okay, so the more that you practice those pack riding skills, the more that you practice being in group will enhance that. So as far as the 13 point to master in order to be a champ, you're gonna have to be good at that. Pack riding, how good are you? How comfortable are you? Are you the rider that's just gonna go and go and go? Or are you the rider that constantly surrender when there are people around you and take your spot? From 0 to 100, be honest. If you compare yourself to the top of your class, how good are you at pack riding skills? Number 10, adaptation skill. Very, very important. Lots of kids, lots of older rider can look amazing on their local track. Why? Because they spent hundreds of reps knowing how to pass that first roller. I'm gonna pedal through, they know exactly how the bike will react throughout the roller. Then there's a double and they pedal into it. Again, they know it, they tested it. Then they're gonna jump the first double because they know that if they manual it, it doesn't quite work well for them. So they know exactly what to do on their first line or on their second line and their third line. Good, more power to you. But you and I both know that the day of the Grand National, you're lucky if you're gonna have 3 laps to practice. So you're gonna have to see the track and know exactly what to do. If you are taking too long to adapt, that means that your first moto, you're still gonna be trying stuff out. Problem with that is if you go to the World Championship, be honest with me, Do you think you can afford to try stuff out on your first moto at the world? Or do you need to know exactly what to do on every line of the track and go for war, all right? So that is very important. Adaptation skill. How long does it take you to adapt in a new track you have never seen before? Number 11, consistency. Very, very important. When you ride your bike and you race, how consistent are your gait? Are you the type of rider that's gonna miss 5 gait out of 10? Or are you gonna hit every single gate perfectly from moto to 16 final, 8 final, quarter final, semi-final, main event? Are your gait always perfect, or is it basically a hit or miss? If you were to time your lap, a good rider that's able to be consistent, the lap should always look about the same. Sure, they're gonna have a faster lap than other, but the difference should not be that much. There are riders out there that may not be the most impressive rider. They may not do all that fancy technique, tap manual, landing manual, etc., all that cool stuff. But what they do work. They work on most simple technique, a simple pre-manual, a simple manual. But if they are able to do it effectively, consistently, over and over, these people will have an advantage on you. Now, let's go to mental. Number 12, race mental. That is extremely important. Race mental. I mean, we hear that all the time. Kids or rider amazing on their local track show up to the race and choke because they let other rider getting into their head. I hear parents tell me all the time, yeah, my kid is really good, but he show up to the race and I don't know, it's like it's not happening the day of the race. They are afraid of the other riders, the new track, etc., and they're not able to deliver their full potential because they're stuck in their head. There are people that are born gifted at that, meaning the higher the race, the more they're gonna push themselves. They're gonna let all that adrenaline work with them instead of against them. So if you're not one of those riders that are naturally born with this fight, you're gonna have to find a way to train your mental. And there are many ways to do it, but you're gonna have to find your mental happy place. Some rider, they may have to remove all the stress possible. Okay, this is not a big race. This is just a practice lap like any others. And that's how I'm going to treat that race. Even if it's the Olympic or even if it's a world championship, they're going to treat it as a training session. Another rider may think, block all the sound and get themselves into the zone and really think that they are only racing themselves, like a time trial. Forget about all the others and go to think of that race in that way. And that's the way they perform well. Another rider may just need to get pissed off. I'm done. This is happening now. And they flip the switch, put their bike on that gate and go kill it. So there are different ways to approach your race mental. If you want to race your full potential, you're gonna have to find your niche. You're gonna have to find a way that works for you. And even if you do find your ways, it may work for that weekend, but it may not work for the other weekend. How consistent are you at always be mentally prepared? Are you those type of rider that do really well mentally at one race and then show up 2 weeks later and it's a completely different rider because now something bugs you in your head? Or are you the rider that just go and go and go and go and always deliver result because your mental is always there? Same question again, from 0 to 100. Be honest on that one. How good are you mentally at the race? Now, number 13, one of the most important one, last point of my 13 point to master, your work ethic. Some riders, some athletes are just born with an outstanding work ethic. And for some reason, they know how to outwork anyone. In fact, parents ask me all the time, is my kid talented enough? Well, I've seen a lot of riders scoring a lot of points on all of the 1 to 12. Really amazing strength, great stamina. Let's say they have great gait skill, manual skill and all that. But if their work ethic, it's not there, they're not going to be training enough to continue to raise their average, and therefore they're never going to make it. I've seen a lot of riders that is completely opposite, where they may not be so impressive from 1 to 12, but their work ethic is so incredibly high that they just work and work and work and work, and next thing you know, they find themselves with a higher average, gate drops, and they're the one winning everyone. So when you think about those 13 points, like I said earlier, it is impossible for you to imagine that you are going to be the best in the world at every single one of them. Naturally, as you're gonna train, you're gonna find yourself that some of those points come easier to you. You will be more gifted at some of those points than others. But what's important is that you know how to think about it. The person that's gonna win is the person with the highest average. Again, if a person score 100 on a physical strength, like extremely gifted, but gait skills are not quite there, manual skills and jumping skills are not there, do you think that that's the person that's going to win? I don't think so. But on the other hand, if the person has amazing manual skills, great jumping skills, great turning skills, but physical strength is not quite there, again, those kids going to be left behind. Here's another one. What if you're amazing at everything? 1, 2, 3, 4, like you really have a really high score on this, but your race mental is not there, and you show up to the big race and you always choke the day when it matters? Are you going to be the one winning? That's how you want to think of it. You need, when you practice, to be aware of those 13 points. And if you are aware of those, you will constantly know how to take care of them. A lot of time when we're in training session, we may go to the track, ride for 2 hours, do tons of gait, jumping skill, manual skills, and all that is good. But think about it. If you are aware of those 13 points and you know them by heart, stamina, physical skill, gait, acceleration, manual, jumping, turning, corner line, pack riding, adaptation, consistency, race mental, and work ethic, if you have those in your mind and you know which one you're good at and which one needs work, I mean, can you imagine how more productive your training is going to be? And if your goal is that you want to be a world champion, you are going to need to be excellent at every single one of them. Here we go. Class number 3, sand barrel analogy. That's my favorite one. So we just got done with the 13 point to master. Some rider would be like, all right, I got it, 13 point to master. That's what I'm gonna think about and that's what I'm gonna work. Thanks, Coach Dom. That's very helpful. Let's work on it. Let's put this into perspective. You wanna become a world champion. The question is, how much should you truly work on those 13 points? Okay, that's an important question. And in order to answer this question, let's work on some statistic here. I think we can all agree that a rider start racing around the age of 10 years old. That rider will achieve his peak around the age of 20 years old and will retire around the age of 30 years old. So that gives you 20 years of riding time. From 10 years old-ish to 20 years old-ish will be your time for you to prepare your pro level. The most important part of your riding career is to prepare that. So let's do the math. Most Olympic discipline coach out there, the swimming team, gymnastic, even CrossFit, every serious athlete will train an average about 2 times a day and 1 day of rest per week. Some of those days, they will have lighter days, lighter session, but they're not gonna be sitting on a couch. They're still gonna be training. Like a CrossFit example, they may have a strength in the morning to take care of, and then at night they will have some sort of conditioning, metcons, or things like that. Same thing with BMX. On my training program, the advanced program, everybody trains about 2 times a day, a morning session and an evening session. Some of these sessions are very easy. They're active recovery session. However, they are important. They are there for a reason, so they need to be counted as an actual session. So you train about 2 times a day with 1 day of rest. So that's 12 sessions a week that you need to work toward that. So let's put a pen on this, let's do some math, and let's try to see where we're at. Simple. 12 sessions a week, okay? So there are 52 weeks in a year, so 12 sessions times 52, that's 624 sessions a year. We already established that it's gonna be taking you 10 years to get to the level that you wanna be. So again, 624 sessions times 10 years, that's gonna give you 6,240 sessions that you need to work toward those 13 skills, right? So imagine the guy that says, okay, I got those 13 points, I'm gonna work really hard at it, and for 2 to 3 months they start working on that. I mean, you want to be a world champion here, okay? You want to be a pro world champion. That's the question of this video. So the answer is that you need to put about 6,240 sessions toward this. So to give you an easy visual, I call it the sand barrel analogy. Get yourself a barrel, and every single time you do a session, put a little bit of sand on it. So when your barrel is going to be full, that's when you are going to be good enough to even have a shot to race at those big races. So let's put the pen on that one too. An average steel barrel, a 55-gallon barrel, is about 50 pounds empty and 800 pounds full of sand. The sand minus the barrel, so you have about 750 pounds of sand to put on that barrel. So if you put that 750 pounds, divide by the number of sessions you need to do in 10 years, 6,240, that equals 0.12 pounds of sand that you need to put on every single session you do. So 0.12 pounds of sand, I calculated for you, it's about an 1/8 of a cup, which is about this big, or 2 tablespoons that you're gonna have to put into your barrel every single time you do a session. So put this into perspective. You have a barrel in your backyard. You go in the morning, you do your sprint session. Coming home, take your scoop of sand, put it into your barrel, and then look at it. That's gonna be the amount of session that you're gonna need to put into your barrel. Now, let's make something clear into this analogy. When you're gonna go to the track and work on your skills, you're gonna have to take care of those sessions very seriously. If you're the type of rider that's just gonna ride circle around the track, talk with your friend for 15 minutes on the gate, take another lap, and not being very serious, don't you dare come home and put a full cup into your barrel and call it good and say that you did it. If you want to be a world champion and you want to train seriously, remember the point number 13, work ethic. You will have to be serious on every session you do. If you do a sprint session, you're gonna have to think to yourself that you are in a gate with 7 riders at the main event of that world championship. You have to visualize it. And then every training, every sprint session, you have to go as if you were to be one of them. If your jumping skills are lacking and you dedicate a whole hour on jumping only, you are not going to talk with your friend for 20 minutes at the picnic table. You're gonna get your butt on that track and you're gonna be jumping and jumping and jumping and jumping some more, all the way until you feel that your skill in jumping are good enough. That may take you a month, that may take you a year, but that is serious work that needs to be put on toward each of your weaknesses of the 13 point that you need to be master. Every single time that you are done with one of those sessions, you deserve to put that little tiny cup of sand and put it into your barrel. Does that make sense? And then something else that we need to mention toward this analogy, this sand barrel analogy, is that barrel, think of it as it has a slow leak in it. So don't you think that you can put a lot of years of work, 4 years worth of work in that barrel, making you like a quarter full or maybe half a full, and think that you can take a 2-year break and then come back and then the barrel being exactly where it was. We both know that if you take a break for 2 years or a year or whatever, and more, by the time you come back, you're gonna be rusty. Rather, you're gonna have to go back in the track and get yourself back into that game, and you're gonna have to make up the time. So that is the sand barrel analogy. Coach Dominic, how many times should I work on my 13 point to master? Get yourself a 55-gallon barrel, put into your backyard. Every single time you train, put an eighth of a cup inside of it. When the barrel is going to be full, you will be most likely having the level to compete against those world champions. All right, so this is the last class of this video on how to become a BMX world champion. Call it the hat pull analogy. Before we get into this class, let's kind of acknowledge a little bit the work that you've done. At this point, you have just spent an entire decade working on your 13 point to master. You have put thousands of sessions into your barrel, and you are now at a pro level, able to go to those types of world championship races and win that darn race. That is extremely impressive. I mean, you belong to the minor majority that actually made it happen. And for that, I commend you for this. Everybody wants to be like you. You are the local hero or even national hero of all the kids at this point. Kids left and right are coming to you and asking you, how are you able to do the things that you are able to do? People are struggling, jumping a double, and here you are jumping that darn double on a pump lap, making it look effortless. I mean, you have made it. But my question to you is now that you are that good, what makes you think that you can go out there and win against those big riders that will also be at that world championship? And you may say, well, you know, Coach Dominic, I am ready for this. I've been working for this for my whole life. I mean, I visualized it. I have a barrel full of sand in my backyard. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to win this race. Well, let's put a little bit things into perspective. Do you think you're going to be the only one to be prepared at this world championship? You go to the world championship, you're going to have lots of riders. Some of the riders are better than others. That's just the way it is. Those riders that are not quite ready to win, they will get out of the race around motos, 16 final, 8 finals, quarterfinals if they're lucky, and so on and so on. But starting semi-final, now it's only heavy rider left. And so by the time you make it to that main, I think it's fair to say that each of them in that main can win. Probably along the race, we're still going to be losing few riders that could have actually won, slipped in a corner and did not make it to that main event. Things like this happen all the time in BMX racing. So I think we can all agree that in a world championship, of all the riders that's going to be signed up to race that race, at least 10 of them can win this race. Just for the fun of this, let's bring some name, let's say in a men pro class, of some BMX legend today and even retired riders. Joris Dudley, right? Nick Kidman, Roman Mayu, Cameron Wood. Let's bring some retired pro that also made history. Connor Field, Sam Willoughby, Maurice Stromberg, Kyle Bennett, Christophe Levesque, Thomas Allier. For the fun of it, let's imagine that we bring all of these riders back at their prime. Which one out of those riders will win this world championship? Truth is, like, that kind of make my point. Each of these riders I just mentioned are more than capable of winning the world championship. There's no way for you to know for sure that you are going to win this world championship. Even with all of your preparation, there's no way for you to know that you're going to win. So at the end of the day, it is only a matter of chance. Just like if I were to put your name into a hat and pick it out, that's why I call it the hat pull analogy. So now the real question is, how do you win a game that it's only a matter of chance? Well, let's take as an example 50-50. You know, when you go to races, weekends, there's always people that sell the 50-50 for people that wants to win a bunch of stuff. Well, if I were to ask you, what do you have to do to make 100% sure that you're going to win this 50-50? The answer is simple. You buy all the tickets, right? Well, Coach Dominic, I cannot buy all the tickets because some other rider, I've already bought some ticket. Good point, fair point. Well, at this point, all that we can do is everything that we can to win. So if we want to up our chances to win, what do we have to do? We buy as many tickets as we can. Same thing in BMX races. You have to race as much as possible so that one of them, you will be the lucky one and you're the one that's going to be winning. You see, if you truly want to become world champion, you only have to win one time to accomplish your goal. You have a hat and there are 10 names in that hat and someone takes it out. And sometime you're going to get picked and sometime you're not going to get picked. But if you belong to that hat, then that's when you have an opportunity to perhaps get picked. So how to make sure that at one time you get picked? You have to race a lot, and every time you race, that's one more opportunity for you to get pulled out of the hat. And if you get pulled one time, you've made it. You've succeeded your goal. Nobody cares how many times you had to go to the World Championship to win it. The only thing that we care about is that at some point in time, you were world champion. We all know that the World Championship happen every single year. So that gives you 10 shots at it. But is World Championship the only race that worth a world title? I mean, in my book, there's also the World Cup. If you win the World Cup, to me, that worth just as much as a World Championship. The World Cup has an actual point system, but at the end of the year, if you won the World Cup, you are a world pro rider in my book. What about the Olympic? That's another event that worth just as much as a world championship. In fact, that worth even more. That is the actual pinnacle of BMX racing. So if you never make it world champion in your 10 years career and you go on and win a gold medal at the Olympic, I mean, I think you've achieved your goal at this point. Now you've got World Championship, you've got World Cup, you've got the Olympic. What about the USA #1 pro title? I mean, USA BMX welcomes riders from all over the world. So if you succeed to make a USA #1 title, in my book, you are a world champion. So let's count how many that is. That gives you 10 World Championship. That gives you 10 World Cup, okay? That gives you about 3 Olympic. I mean, if you go to Olympic around 20, this is every 4 years. So 2024 will be your second shot at the Olympic, and 28 years old-ish will be your third shot at the Olympic. After that, you're probably gonna be retired. So let's say 3 opportunity to go to the Olympic, okay? And then you have 10 USA title. Again, that is a point system, so you have to do lots of races, but nevertheless, you still have a chance every single year to make the #1 pro title. So 10, 10, 3, 10, that gives you 33 opportunity to win a huge title in BMX racing. What you have to understand is that, sadly enough, you will fail at most of these events. Why? Because the level is so high and anything can happen in BMX. You may show up in that day and you will be in the best shape of your life. Well, if something happened in one of those darn corner and you don't make the main, you're not going to be winning it. It is just as simple as that. And that is BMX racing. But if you race a lot, at some point you're going to get lucky. So imagine that. You've got 10 world championships, so miss your first year, miss your second year, slip the corner in quarterfinal on your third year, fourth year, hit the gate in semifinal, did not make it. Fifth year, you were the best, but slip in semifinal. Don't you get discouraged. Sixth year, you podium the world. That is a nice spot on your resume right there. 7 year, fail. 8 years, fail. 9 years, you are now the world champion. You've made it. You've got picked out of the hat. Finally, your name came out and you are the world champion. You've done your goal. You've achieved it. 10 years, missed it, did not make it, did not defend your title. Oh well. Well, there's still the World Cup. Failed the first, failed. Fourth year, podium. Fifth year, failed. You win the 6th year, 7 failed, 8 failed, 9 failed, 10 failed. Olympic, miss the first one, miss the second one, and let's say you podium the third one. Incredible. USC BMX, miss the first, miss the second, win the title in your third years, win the title in your fourth year, double USA #1 pro title, and then miss all the rest, okay? So as you can see, you've been failing most of all of these events because the level is so high. But for the few times that you've made it, I mean, look at this kind of resume, Mr. #1 world champion, 1 World Cup winner, podium, the Olympic, and 2-time USA #1 pro champion. I mean, look at that resume. We're not talking about a rider that is a world champion. We're talking about a legend of BMX racing here. We're talking about a rider that has made history in the sport of BMX. And why were you able to make that history? Because you were ready and you just went to lots of races. Sometimes you got picked out of the hat and sometimes you didn't. Most of the time you did not get picked. But for the few times that you got picked, because you've done it often enough, you have a resume that only the rest of us can dream of. And that's how you become a world champion. Understand what's coming up ahead of you. Study your 13 point, learn them by heart. Fill out your barrel full of sand. And once you're ready, go gamble and make history. You've got 10 years to do so. Coach Dominic, what happened if I don't know what to expect? You are going to get discouraged and you're never going to make it all the way on top. Well, Dominic, what happened if I work hard but I don't understand my 13 point to master? Well, you're going to forget important point and never make it to that level. Well, Coach Dominic, what happened if I understand my 13 point to master, but I don't fill out my barrel? Well, you will never have the level that it takes to be in that hat. You're never gonna make it to the main event because your name is not in that hat. In order to be in that hat, you have to be a rider that actually has the level to win this race. And we already established that there's about 10 riders that belong to that hat. So if you want to be in that hat, you have to have a full barrel. Well, Coach Dominic, what happened if I understand all that? My barrel is full, but it took me too long to fill it up. I took a break when I was a kid, and now I'm about 25 years old, and now my barrel is finally full, and I have the level to compete. Can I still be world champion? Very possible, absolutely, but you don't have as many chances. If your goal is to be a world champion, I say, let's make sure that we give you all the chances that we can to make sure that you achieve this goal. And for that, you have to fill out your barrel quick. From 10 years old-ish to 20 years old, you have to do the work. At 20 years old or ish, you have to have the level to be a pro. And then you have a whole decade plus some to make history happen. At the end, I promise you, you will have a solid resume. I have no clue what your resume is going to say, but my guess is that it's going to be good.